Okay, so we're starting out with chapter number 1, that is your sources of law. And when we were discussing the index of our chapters, I also told you that this relates to the jurisprudence aspect of your subject. Okay, let's do a breakup, helicopter view of what you'll be studying in this entire chapter, and then we'll go into it individually. So your chapter is actually divided into two parts. The two parts that this chapter is divided into is known as your schools of thought Okay, it asks question as to why we have law. This is the first part. Now, the second part that we have is the sources of our Indian law. So this is self-explanatory. Where do our Indian laws come from? So this sources of Indian law is what we're going to be starting out with today. The sources of Indian law itself can be divided into two parts. That is your primary sources and your secondary sources. We'll be studying about 4 primary sources over here, and secondary sources I will write 4 for the time being, but we expand into it a lot more. Okay, this is the first half of your chapter that we will be covering starting today. After we complete this, we will come into the schools of thought. Okay, in schools of thought we have 5 schools of thought that we will be looking at. When I say schools, I mean different periods of time in the last 1200 years where people came out and asked the question, why do we have law, what is law, and how they arrived at that understanding. So this is pure, this entire chapter is purely theoretical. You won't get any tough questions from here. Every question from here will be a direct question. Okay, so I'll classify this as fully theory and direct questions. There are no section numbers over here. You may study one case law, that's it. So like I said, purely theory. So how you need to prepare for this is concept based understanding. Okay, so this is your helicopter view. Can we start with the first half, that is our sources of Indian law. How many of you remember your civics from your 10th standard? Or political science, as we call it? Civics, no? Okay, what did we study in civics? Constitution. What did you say? Politics, correct. Not exactly politics, but what did we study under Constitution? We have legislature, parliament, someone makes the law, correct? We're going to do a little bit introduction into that. This forms the base of how our system works in India. Okay, this is not a part of your chapter number 1, but to understand chapter number 1, you'll need to know about this. Okay. Okay. Now, our constitution says that there are 3 main bodies in our country. 3, largely we'll classify them as this. First one is your legislature. Second one is your judiciary. And the third is your executive. Okay. Now, what do we know about the legislature? Parliament. But the legislature itself is divided into your center and state. Right? Like she said, at the center we have Parliament. At the state level, we'll have something known as State Legislative Assembly. I write this down fully for you all. Or in short form. Okay. In Parliament, have you all heard of the two houses? Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So, I will just write LS and RS. Lok Sabha and your Rajya Sabha. Right? Now, what is the purpose of the legislature? All of them put together, what do they do? They pass laws. Okay, right? Fine. Now come to our judiciary. Our judiciary consists of your Supreme Court at the highest level. Where is the Supreme Court located? New Delhi. Okay, we have only one Supreme Court. Or do we have more than one? We have only one. Okay, we have only one Supreme Court in the entire country. Then we have high courts in each state. Each state has only one high court or more than one? Most of them will have only one, but if the state is very big, then they will have more high courts. Best example is Karnataka. We have two high courts there, one in Bangalore and one in Dharwad. So that's a requirement because it's a large state. And then we have our lower courts. Our lower courts, which can be divided into civil and criminal. Okay, this is a rough breakup of your judicial system. What does the judiciary do? Say. I am not able to hear. What? Study of laws. Can I say that as interpretation of laws? Interprets laws. Study of law. Absolutely correct. What else does the judiciary do? Solve cases, disputes. Okay, so largely I can say that this is their function. Okay, if we have doubts as to how a law is applicable, we can go to the court, or if we have a dispute, we go to the court. So that is the function of the judiciary. Now last comes your executive. Who falls under the executive? The police. Who else? Defense. Yeah. Who? Your IAS officers, IPS officers, foreign services, revenue, all your I'm not getting the word for it. They form the executive. Okay, so it's not just them. If you see the executive, actually the President of India is the executive head of state. So he actually falls under the executive category. The same way it applies to the Vice President, your governors. And then, like we said, your police force, your why did I categorize them in the executive level? We have to look at it from their function. What do they do? What do you think the executive does? Protect public interests, but you're looking at it purely from a police point of view. But yeah, that is correct. However, that's a police function. I'm talking about the entire executive. They? Also only a part of it, like how police force is for what answer did you say? For protecting the public. The same way, one part of it is related to infrastructure. Okay. Now, what the executive does is they execute the laws which were made by Parliament. That's their primary function. Okay. The members of Parliament are sitting in Delhi. They are the ones who make the law. But if you have a dispute, who do you go to? Judiciary. So then, shouldn't you go to the legislators only? They are the ones who make the rules, no? But we are going to the judiciary. Now, are your members of Parliament going to come and say, if you don't follow this law, I will punish you? No, that's the police. Correct? So, if you see the role of the executive, it is to execute the law made by Parliament. That is their primary function. Now, I know President being the executive head of state, he is a different person. He doesn't have just executive powers, he also has judicial and legislative powers also. Because he is the President of India. So, apart from him, everyone else will execute laws made by the Parliament. So, are we clear with this part of it? Okay. Now, tell me one thing. How many of you are Christians? Anyone Muslim? Muslim? Christian? Okay. Do you know about any laws that are applicable only to the Christians? No, not yet. Okay. Who all are Hindus? Yeah. Do you know about any special laws that are applicable only to Hindus? No. Okay. Tell me from this perspective, okay. How do Christians get married? Can you tell me? They exchange? Rings? Is that correct? They exchange rings. Do Hindus exchange rings? No. Do Muslims exchange rings? But just because you're exchanging a ring, does that mean you're married? Huh? Marriage registration should be there. Okay. So, some rule came about, right? Ideally, if you exchange rings, it should be enough. Ideally, if you walk around the fire, it's enough. If the husband puts the potte for the wife, it's enough. These are our customs. When did these customs become law? Are you understanding? So, our customs have existed for a very long time. But the laws came only recently, when the Britishers came into India. When did the British come? Roughly 200 years we can say they were here. That's when our laws came into effect. Because before that we had different rules. We followed different customs. Okay? So, why am I talking about this is because in India we don't follow one religion. Okay? Unlike Pakistan or unlike a lot of Arab countries, where their official religion is Islam. Okay, in India we follow a lot of religions. So we have to cater to all of them. So what do we recognize as a law? Which customs have become law? Or which new laws have been created? That is what we are going to be studying about using the legislature, judiciary and executive, and also try to understand what are the sources of our Indian law. Okay? Did you all understand where I was coming from this with respect to customs? Somewhat. Okay, because it's not just marriage, it's also divorce. If you notice, Christians and Hindus actually don't have the concept of divorce, but then our laws now allow for it. Muslims see marriage as a contract, and a contract can be broken, hence divorce is accepted. Now these are all rules we followed in the past. So is it rules that we should still continue following? How does a custom become a rule? Which rule should we follow? And that is what we're going to be understanding from when we're studying about the sources of Indian law. So we'll start out with the primary sources. So let's have an overview of both primary sources as well as secondary sources. I'd like you all to write this down. Okay, so mark it in the table exactly like how you all are able to see it. In the primary sources, we have 4 primary sources of Indian law. Our first one is customs. The second one is called statutes or legislation. It's also another word for law. Write it down. Statutes or legislation. Okay. The third one is judicial precedent. Sounds exactly like President of India, but it's not President of India. It is precedent. Okay. And lastly, we have personal laws. These 4 mark the primary sources of our Indian law. Has everyone written it down? Our secondary sources is justice, equity, and good conscience. And the sources of English law. Yeah? Okay. Let's break it down. Okay? Laws or statutes or legislation is passed by the legislature. Okay. Your judicial precedents are passed by the judiciary. Fine. Your personal laws are also laws or statutes, but it will vary depending on whether you are Muslim, Hindu or Christian. And you can be a Jain also, but you will be classified under Hindu category. From the perspective of laws, our country recognizes 3 main religions: Christianity, Hinduism and Islam. So even if you're not one of these, you're Jain, Buddhist, you are now a follower of Sadhguru, you can be all of that, there's no problem. But you'll be classified as a Hindu. Okay. Now, based on that, based on being Hindu, Christian, or Muslim, you will have special laws that are applicable to you. Okay, and we'll discuss more about this as we come to that topic. And what are customs? Customs are not created by anyone. It is just something that we've been following for that much time. Okay. Why do we walk around a fire? Any logic to it? No, but everyone in our ancestors have done it. and so we will follow. Why do we put the why do we exchange rings? Why do we put the puttil? Why do we do many things that we do? There may not be any logic to it, but it's because it's been followed by people. It is now a custom. Okay, so let's start out with the first one, that is your statutes or legislation. Again, I told you that this is passed by the legislature. Okay. Now, can someone read out the first line for me? Jasmine, read out the first line.
Election laws are statutory laws which created by legislation, for example,
Acts of Parliament
or of state legislature is sometimes called
Jus Scriptum.
Written law as contrasted with the customary law, or just unwritten law. Legislation is able to bring us about
Yeah, okay. So before we move into this statutes and legislation, I want to make one more small distinction. Customs is what we call as unwritten law. Okay, and our statutes or legislation is what we call as a written law. Fine. So that's the first distinction that they are making. There are two types of laws, written and unwritten. Jus scriptum, jus non scriptum. Jus scriptum is our statute and legislation passed by our legislature. Okay. But jus non scriptum, which means unwritten law, refers to all the customs that we follow for many generations. Okay. Now, based on this distinction only, we are coming to what is your legislation. Simply put, legislation means any law passed by the legislature. It can either be parliament or it can be state legislative assembly. Both are recognized. So if you want to write that down, you can write it down as a distinction. Okay. Law is law made by parliament. Now, what you see in this little box in front of you, I'm not going to do it immediately. Okay. What is it? Is that when laws are passed, sometimes it can be delegated to someone else. What do I mean by that? Okay. Say for example, I have the authority to take jurisprudence class for you all. So, am I the only teacher taking this subject for you? Yes. Now, I'm not here for the time being. Maybe I'm not here for a week or two or something. What I do is I delegate my work to another person. So, I'm taking my power and I'm giving it to another teacher, and I'm telling that teacher, teach this chapter or teach these two chapters while I'm not there. Now, that person is also a teacher only. But are they the ones having the authority to teach this subject? Originally, no, that is mine. Now, what if the same jurisprudence subject is not only being taught in this class, but it's also being taught in multiple centers across the city and across the country? So, what will happen? Can I take every class? No, right? I'll have to pass on my authority to someone else and tell them you also take it in that center. Now, apply it from a law point of view. If there is a law, it has to apply to the full country. Yes, Parliament will make the law sitting in Delhi, but it still has to be implemented, right? And that implementation part, they'll delegate it to someone else. Now, let's just say, for example, they pass a law regarding They pass a law regarding, have you all heard of the word surrogacy? Okay, leave surrogacy. Some medical law they pass. Some law related to medicine. Do you think our parliamentarians, our members of parliament, do you think they're all doctors? But are they the ones passing the law? Yes. They can pass the law. But certain rules regarding medicine or certain technical points will be delegated to the Indian Medical Council. Because Parliament cannot pass that as a law. So we have many rules like this that exist where Parliament will make a law but then also delegate it to someone else. And that is what we see as supreme legislation and delegated legislation. Now here, based on what the 2 lines that you see before you is not going to sufficiently explain the topic. So for right now, we'll just leave it here, but we'll come back to understanding this after we've even completed the 4th chapter. Okay, but all you need to know about statutes and legislation is that it's a written law, just scriptum. It is passed by parliament or state legislature. Okay, and it can either be a supreme legislation or a delegated legislation. Another word for delegated is only subordinate. Okay. Now let's come to the second type of source of Indian law, and this is your judicial precedents. Fine. Did we just discuss about the judiciary and the courts that we have in the judiciary? Okay, we have the Supreme Court, the High Courts and the lower courts. Now I'm going to vastly expand on this topic right now. Not only does it help us with chapter 1, but with all the remaining chapters also. Okay, fine. What have I written over here? LC is lower court, HC is high court, SC is Supreme Court. So from now on, I'm going to be using these terms only. Don't get confused, but if you are getting confused, ask me about it. Okay. Now, whenever there's a dispute, only then we go to a court of law. Do you simply go to the court to say hi to the judge? No, right? I mean, the purpose is that there's a dispute. So whenever you have a dispute, there is a simple rule in our country. You don't approach the highest court first. Rather, you go to the lowest court possible. Okay, so if it is a civil matter, you go to the civil court first. If it's a criminal, you go to criminal court first. And that is your entry. Okay, get a decision by that court. Let them give the final judgment. But if you're not happy with the decision of that court, then you can go on appeal to the High Court. Similarly, High Court will also give a judgment, and then you can go on appeal to the Supreme Court. So largely I can say that the manner in which you have to approach the courts is bottom to top. Always. Even if you go to the Supreme Court first, no, they'll ask you to go back to the lower courts first. Okay, this is how we go upwards. But there's something which we call as precedence, which works the opposite. That is what we're going to be studying about now. A precedent is nothing other than the judgment. Okay, don't write anything for the time being. Understand the concept and then we can write things down. Okay, please understand, while going to the courts of law, we go from bottom to the top, but precedents work the other way around. It moves from top to bottom. What do I mean by this? For this, we need to understand how the courts are situated within the Supreme Court or within the High Court itself. And for this purpose, I will take the Supreme Court first. Okay, in the Supreme Court, we don't have just one room in Delhi which is known as the Supreme Court. It's a building which consists of multiple courtrooms. Okay. Okay, and in those courtrooms, sometimes a single judge can also be sitting there. One single judge. We call it as a single judge bench because they're seated on a bench. They're seated on a chair, but it's an old term. So we call it as a single judge bench. Then we have something known as the division bench. 2 judges. Except for single and the 2 judge bench, after that we will have only 3 judge, 5 judges in odd numbers. So this is in your Supreme Court. Okay, and it can even go up to 11 judges, 13 judges if necessary. Okay, now what they're saying is that when a 5 judge bench gives a decision, it is binding on all the judges below him. Now similarly, if a judgment is given by the Supreme Court, it is binding on all the courts lower to it. Okay, so that is why I drew this line over here. If a Supreme Court gives a judgment, all the lower courts will have to follow that as a rule, as a law. If a High Court gives a judgment, all the courts lower to that High Court in that state have to follow it as a law. Then within the courts itself, within the Supreme Court and within the High Court itself, if a 5 judge bench gives a decision, then all 3 judge, 2 judge, single judge bench will also have to follow it. Now, what if a single judge has given a decision? Does the 5 judge bench have to follow it? The answer is no. Always remember High Court, Supreme Court, High Court, lower courts, and then 5, 3, 2, 1. So the power moves from top to bottom. Okay. Now keeping this in mind, you must still be wondering, how does this even work? How is a judge sitting in Supreme Court giving a rule and suddenly it's binding on everyone else? Okay. This rule is applicable over time. Now what do I mean by this? Let's say, for example, the year is 2012. Okay, or not 2012, let's keep it as say 2017. It's the year 2017. Okay, now a person goes, so this is when GST was introduced, and when GST was introduced there was a lot of confusion as to how it is to be implemented. So this example I'm giving you now is purely made up. It didn't really happen. Okay, let's say that the government went out and said all vegetables attract a 18% tax. You all know how GST works? 5%, 12, 18, etc. Vegetables attract 18% tax is what our government has said. But then we have a tomato trader. What is tomato? Fruit or vegetable? Fruit. Who says vegetable? Who's saying fruit? 1, 2, 3. Who's saying it's a vegetable? Confusion, no. Actually, this is a big question. Is it a fruit? Because it has more water content. It's like a fruit only, but we eat it like a vegetable. Now, our amazing tomato trader he decides tomato is a fruit. Only for vegetable they have to pay 18% tax. No, so he doesn't pay tax. Who comes after him? GST will come after him, and so GST has taken him to court. Okay, confusing, no? How do you apply this rule over here now? So let's assume for this example's sake, he's gone to the lower court, he's gone to the High Court, and now he's reached the Supreme Court. Okay, and the Supreme Court, a 5 judge bench. Actually, let's not say 5 judges. Supreme Court, single judge bench, gave a decision. Okay, they said that tomato is a vegetable. Fine. So tomato trader now has to pay up all of the GST that for the tomatoes that he sold. What is the court held? Is a vegetable. Fine. This is in the year 2017. Supreme Court has given the decision. Now fast forward 2 years or 3 years. The year is 2021. Exact same manner, same problem. Our tomato traders have now decided that what they have is not a vegetable, it's actually a fruit, and they've not paid the GST for it. GST has taken them to the court of law. But tell me, which court does GST approach first? The lower court, because you go to the lowest court possible. So in the year 2021, they go to the lower court. Now what does the lower court see? In 2017, the court already gave a decision on the exact same point. Okay. Now the lower court has no choice. It has to implement the rule that was said in 2017. Why? Because it is the lower court. Okay, so in the lower court, they will hold that tomato is the vegetable. But our tomato trader is not happy with it. So what does he do? He goes to the High Court. But what is High Court? High Court is still under Supreme Court. No, they will still have to give the same decision. And our tomato trader decides nothing doing, I am going to go to the Supreme Court. Remember there was one time when 1 kg of tomato was 300 rupees. So let's assume it's the same time, okay. He thinks he's sitting on gold. So he goes to the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court, he goes to the Supreme Court and he says, don't give me a single judge and tell me the exact same thing. Rather, give me a higher judge bench. So see, this was a single bench. Now what they will appoint is, they will appoint a division bench over here. Okay, and now this division bench can even turn the entire judgment around and say no, tomato is a fruit. And let's assume scenario number 1, this court said that tomato is a fruit. My first question to you is, can this court do this? What do you think? One person is saying yes, but I will wait for other answers. In 2021, Supreme Court, a division bench, that is 2-judge bench, has now come out and given the decision, tomato is a fruit. Can they do this? Yes, because in 2017, it was a single judge bench that gave the decision. Now it's a 2-judge bench, they are higher in authority, so they can definitely go ahead and tell this. They can even simply say nothing doing, tomato is a. This is also a decision that they can give. What I'm trying to tell you is that a higher judge bench can overturn the whole decision, can give a completely different ruling. But what if, and now I'm changing a little bit of the example, okay, what if over here it was not a single judge bench, but rather it was a 3-judge bench. And then in 2021, there is a division bench. Again, this is 2 judges. Now what decision can they give? Tomato is a vegetable only. They cannot overturn the decision of their own court. Okay, because they are lower in number than the judges of the previous decision. So if they want to change the decision, they need to get a higher number of judges. So are you understanding now how this precedent works? How, if a law comes into effect, how it will affect us? Now let's go back to our the same original example itself. Let's say a situation comes where the court can say tomato is a fruit. Now, what happens to this decision? Becomes invalid, because the latest decision is what you need to follow. So yes, you can have Supreme Court giving many decisions in 1960, 1970, 2000, etc. But you always look at the latest decisions. Did they give a explanation in 2017, or did they give an explanation in 2025 itself? Then you follow that as the law. Okay. Now, we've understood how it works, but what is it? What is this? What is it that they have to follow as a rule? That is what we're going to be seeing now as the word precedent. Okay. The word precedent is nothing other than a judge-made law. And this I'd like you all to write down. I want you to start writing down. Start writing down from precedent. Precedent is a judge-made law. Okay. How does the judge make the law? By passing judgments. Judges won't go to parliament and then make the law over there, but rather in court they give judgment, and that judgment is now the rule that we have to follow, and that is what we call as a precedent. Fine? Okay. Finish writing and then look here. Let's assume that you all have a dispute. Any dispute, consumer protection, or someone scammed you of money, or a criminal dispute, some kind of a dispute. You're going to the court of law. Okay, and for this example, let's assume I'm the judge. Let's categorize 4 of you all as the complainants and the 4 of you all as the defendants. Which means what? You all gave 10 lakh rupees to this group. This group did not pay it back to you all. Dispute? There's a problem, right? Now, you all try to solve it on your own. Cannot. You all are coming to the court. Who will approach as the complainant? This party. They'll come and tell me, I gave so much money to them on this date with these terms, and they didn't give it back to me. Okay, so they'll provide all the facts of the case. Now, just because they are telling me one story, should I simply believe them? No, right? It must be backed up by evidence. Now, the same way, I will call you all to the court, and I will ask you all to tell me your side of the story. You all will say, no, actually, they did give me 10 lakh rupees, but then there was some other issue. They already owe me 10 lakh rupees. That is why I didn't pay it back now. Some story you have, some defense you have. So you will also come and give me your facts and evidence. Now I'll hear both of you all. And I will see what law is applicable. Are you all falling within the law? Was this 10 lakh rupees a bribe? Was this 10 lakhs for dealing drugs? Or was this 10 lakhs to go and kill someone? Because if it's illegal activities, the court won't do anything about it. So I will see which law is applicable over here. Correct? And then after deciding all of this only, I will give the judgment. When a judge hears the facts with proper evidence, under the proper law, and then arrives at a rational decision, that is what we call as a judgment. But I won't just say it's a judgment. I will say that he's arriving at a decision. Okay? But a judge is also human. Okay, a judge can be a woman, it can be a man. A judge can be a woman who hates other women, or it can be a male judge who hates women, or a female judge who hates men. Whatever it is, we're human beings. We have something going on over here, and many times we don't arrive at logical decisions. So, believe it or not, sometimes judges won't look at the facts, evidence and law. They will give their own personal opinion along with it. So alongside the decision, they can also give some opinions along with it. It's there, it happens, and some of it has been good, some of it has been bad. If you have to look at it as a bad perspective, there is one case in our Indian history where a girl was raped. She was a Dalit girl, and she ran away with the boy that she loved. The police caught hold of both of them and arrested the girl, and they ended up molesting the girl. Eventually, the family members took this matter to the court of law, and the court happened to have high caste Brahmins sitting as the judges. Your judges were high caste Brahmins, and beyond our courts, we have something known as the caste system that has been there for I don't even know how many years, but I can safely say it's been more than 200 years. So believe it or not, in one of the worst judgments given in Indian history, the judges simply refused to look at this girl as a victim, but rather they looked at her as a Dalit girl. And this you can't blame. This happens because of bias. What do you do in situations like this? So you should completely disregard the personal opinion. But also, personal opinions have given rise to very good laws. Judges at one point, in one situation, a criminal case, the police had arrested a man. Next thing you know, the body is found on the railway track. Okay, and the police claim no, he ran away. He ran away and he went to the the railway track, and he died. Now the court came and they said nothing doing. If a person gets arrested, these are certain rules that have to be followed. And over time, they were implemented as rules. Again, personal opinion, but turned out for the good. So we have to consider both aspects when a judge gives his decision. It can be based on facts, evidence and the law, but it can also be a personal opinion. Okay. Now, why am I talking about this? Because only this decision forms the precedent. We mostly do not consider the personal opinion. Mostly. Okay. So let's just recap whatever we discussed with precedents right now. A small recap. What is precedent? Judge-made law. Now, let's start off from here. We studied about the judiciary. How are our courts situated in the judiciary? Supreme Court, High Court, lower courts. Which court do you go to first? Lower courts. Based on civil or criminal. Okay. Now, in the judiciary, if say a 13-judge bench gave a decision, which courts have to follow it? All the courts in our country. If a high court gave a decision, which courts have to follow it? The lower courts. Does the Supreme Court have to follow it? No. How many high courts are there in our country? How many states in our country? 32. Do all of them have high courts? Good question. Even I should go and check again. Okay, but each state has its own high court. A decision given by the Tamil Nadu High Court. Should the Karnataka High Court listen to it? Yes, no? No. Anyone saying yes? We only spoke about above and below. What if you are at the same level? Actually, the answer is no. Okay, we'll go into that a little bit when we are studying this in detail. But, okay, great. Now, what if a A 2-judge bench of the High Court gives a decision. Can a 5-judge bench of the same High Court overturn that decision? I'm repeating my question. 2 judges of one High Court give one decision. Years later, can a 5-judge bench overturn the decision of this 2-judge bench? Yes. Higher the number can overturn. The word I'm using is overturn. Change the